Let us pray. Almighty God, the creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our actions so that we may always walk in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do only those things that will promote the unity, peace, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria in general and Lagos State in particular. Amen. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Can we look at the fruits and proceeding of the last sitting? Ojú ìwé okòólénírínwó. Ojú ìwé kọkànlélókòólénírínwó. Mákindé.
Ẹ̀ka àsán olùdarí àti ẹlẹgbẹ́ mi. Ní ọ̀sẹ̀ tó kọjá, mo gbàyè lọ́wọ́ ilé wípé mo máa bá wọn péjọ ní ìlú Port Harcourt fún àpérò tó máa ń ṣe ní ọdọọdún fún àwọn ẹgbẹ́ Nigeria Institute of Town Planners tí mo dẹ̀ kọ ìwé pẹ̀lú ẹ̀. Mo dẹ̀ rí orúkọ mi ní àwọn tí wọn ò gbàyè, mo dẹ̀ gbàyè kí n tó lọ sí ìrìn àjò yìí. Nǹkan kan bá mi ṣe àtúnṣe ní olùdarí.
Akọ̀wé àgbà ẹ bá wa ṣe àtúnṣe. I've gone through the fruits and proceedings of the last sittings, and approval is hereby given. Huh? Observation. Oh, sorry.
We're in English now, sir. I asked for permission too as well last weekend. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Clark, please do the needful. Message from the governor.
Honorable Speaker, sir, distinguished honorable members, there is no message from the governor.
Other announcements?
Right, Honorable Speaker, sir, there is none.
Petitions?
None, sir.
Matter of urgent public importance? None. Personal explanations? None. Reports? None. Business of the day, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the item on the other paper for today, the 2nd day of November, is presentation of report of the Committee on Special Duties and Intergovernmental Relations. The report is to be presented by its chairman, Honorable Kazim R.A., on the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service Bill 2021. To undertake this, Mr. Speaker, I wish to proceed with your permission to move that the House dissolve to Committee of the Whole. I so move.
Thank you. Honorable Tijani Surajuddin.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I rest to second the motion as moved.
All those in favor say yes. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Kazim Ibrahim Adewale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, fellow colleagues. Report of the Committee on Special Duties and Intergovernmental Relations on a bill for a law to establish the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service and for other connected purposes. 1. Preamble. The House, at its plenary session of Thursday, 10 June 2021, deliberated on a bill for a law to establish the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service and for other connected purposes, and committed same to the Committee on Special Duties, Intergovernmental Relations for further screening and to report its findings to the House. In line with Order 85.3 of the Harmonized Business Rules and Standing Orders of the House, which mandates every committee to which a bill has been committed to ensure public participation in the process, the committee organized a day public hearing on the proposed legislation to seek professional input from stakeholders on Friday, 16 July 2021 at the Assembly Pavilion, where presentations were made and memoranda submitted by the stakeholders. Sir, I don't know, maybe I should go to the observations because of the... You permit me, sir?
Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Observations. 5.0.
Okay.
Observations. The following observations were made from the submissions and contributions of the stakeholders at the hearing that, figure 1, in the interpretation clause, there is need to redefine commissioner to mean commissioner for special duties and intergovernmental relations or any member of the State Executive Council. Owner to mean a person who for the time being is receiving or is entitled to receive the rent of any land or building, whether on his own account or account of himself and others, or as an agent, trustee, guardian or receiver, or any other person or who should so receive the rent or be entitled to receive it
if the land or building or part of it were let to a tenant. In the interpretation clause, create a new word to mean 1. Fire prevention and fire safety measures means such measures as are necessary under this law for the time being enforced for the prevention, control and fighting of fire and for ensuring the safety of life and property in case of fire. 2. Occupier includes 1. Any person who for the time being is paying or is liable to pay to the owner the rent or any portion of the rent of the land or building in respect of which such rent is paid or is payable. 2. An owner in occupation of or otherwise using his land or building. 3. A rent-free tenant of any land or building. 4. A license in occupation of any land or building. And 5. Any person who is liable to pay to the owner damage for the use and occupation of any land or building. Still on 2. In clause 2, create a new subclause 2A to read A. Education and encouragement of persons and communities to apply the principle of fire safety so as to prevent fires, preserve human life, and avoid unwarranted property loss due to the destructive forces of fire, and renumber accordingly. 3. Create a new clause 4H to read: inspect and offer technical advice on fire extinguishers, and renumber accordingly. 4. In old clause 4H, now line 3, insert the phrase "and to ensure that a maintenance schedule is kept for check whenever demanded by any visiting fire officers." After the word premises. 5. In old clause 4J, now insert the phrase "in conjunction with appropriate agencies and stakeholders" after the word structure. 6. Create a new clause 4J to read: train and organize fire volunteer squad at the community level. 7. Create a new clause 4I to read: offer rescue and evacuation service to those trapped by fire or in other emergencies. 8. In old clause 4K, now 4N, line 1, delete the phrase "carry out" and insert jointly carry out with the Lagos State Safety Commission before the word risk. 9. In clause 52B, line 1, delete 1 and insert 2 members before the word who. 10. In clause 52C, line 1, delete 2 and insert 1 member before the word with. 11. In clause 53, line 2, insert the phrase "subject to the confirmation of the House" after the word "commissioner." 12. Clause 6(1)(a) before be redrafted. Clause 6(1)(a) be redrafted to read: coordinate a state-wide system for the collection and analysis, dissemination of fire data to prevent and combat fire outbreak. 13. Create a new clause 10 with a side note to read: procedure of the board. The board may make standing order to regulate its proceedings. 14. Create a new clause 11 with a side note to read: meeting of the board. 1. The board shall meet at least four board times in a year, 4 times in a year. 2. Attending meetings of the board, the chairman or in the chairman's absence, any member duly appointed by the board shall preside. 3. All meetings of the board shall be convened by the secretary by notice to the members. 15. Create a new clause 13 with a side note to read 14. 1. All questions at a meeting of the board shall be determined by a majority of votes of the members of the board present and voting. 2. At any meeting of the board, each member shall have equal vote, and if there is equality of votes, the chairman of the meeting shall have a second or casting vote. 16. Create a new clause 14 with a side note to read power to co-opt. Where the board desires to obtain the advice of any person or any matter, the board may co-opt such persons to be a member for such meeting as may be required, and any co-opted person will have all the rights and privileges of a member of the board, but will not be entitled to vote on any question or count towards a quorum. 17. Create a new clause 16 with a side note to read power and duties of state fire controller. 1. The state fire controller shall have the power to A. Promote, encourage and cooperate with anybody or person interested in developing and promoting the principles and practice of fire prevention and the protection of life and property against fire, including promoting, encouraging and delivering public fire safety education program and training, and supporting and assisting others to provide public fire safety education programs and training. B. Ensure fire suppression, fire prevention, fire protection, and the training of persons involved in the provision of this service, as well as rescue and emergency service, and the delivery of this service and matters related to any of them. C. Investigate conditions under which fire occur. D. Require such report as deemed necessary from person authorized or required to inspect, investigate, or examine. F. Collect and disseminate information with respect to fire in the state. G. Advise person or organization interested in developing or promoting the principle and practice of fire suppression, fire prevention, fire safety education, emergency service, and related communication systems, and the delivery of these services and systems, and H. Do any other duty as may be assigned by the commissioner. 2. The state fire controller may make provision for A. The service of such fire equipment as may be necessary and practicable to efficiently meet all normal requirements. B. The efficient training of members of the fire and rescue service. C. To provide accommodation for the fire service and its equipment, including housing and other accommodation for members of the fire service. And D. To pay persons not being member of the fire and rescue service maintained in portion of this law who render service for fire fighting purpose. Such reward as the state fire controller deems fit with the approval of the governors. 18. Create a new clause 17 with a side note to read creation of state fire and rescue service division and units. The state fire and rescue service shall serve in a supervisory authority with its headquarters at the state capital having 5 divisions in Badagry, Ikeja, Lagos Island, Ikorodu, and Epe. 2. There shall be at least 1 fire service station in each of the 20 local government and 37 local government SCD, local government development area in Lagos to be known as fire service unit. The fire and rescue service shall superintend over all districts and units to ensure they meet the required standards. 19. In clause 16, now clause 24, create a new subclause 2 to read the allowance shall be in tandem with the compulsory structure. 20. In clause 17.2, now clause 26.2, create a new subclause A to read the allowances shall be in tandem with the compulsory salary structure. Sorry, I think that is repetition. In clause 17.2, now clause 22, create a new sub A to read A. All monies appropriated to the service by the state government. 21. Create a new clause 18 with a side note to read establishment of paramedical department of the service. 1. There shall be a paramedical department in the service. 2. The paramedical department shall be responsible for administering basic and urgent medical treatment to victims of fire outbreak and other related emergencies before or in the course of transit to the hospital. 3. The paramedical department shall comprise of professionals such as emergency medical technician, EMTs, and paramedics who are satisfied to begin the process of emergency care for victims. 22. In clause 18, now clause 27, create a new sub clause 4 to read 4. The maintenance of such source and fire hydrant in public places shall be solely carried out by the service and the Lagos State Water Corporation. 23. Still in old clause 18.4, now 5, line 2, inside the phrase or industrial borehole after the word hydrant. 24. In clause 19, now 28, now clause 28.1, line 2, inside the phrase including fire marshals, wardens, volunteers, consultants, and relevant stakeholders after the word persons. 25. Create a new clause 21, 1 and 2 and 3 with the side note staff of the service with provision of clause 13, 5, 4 and clause 14 of the bill respectively. 26. In clause 21, 1, now clause 48, 1, line 4, inside the phrase with the approval of the state government after the word assistant. 27. Create new clause 21 and 22 to read account and audit. The service shall A. Keep proper account and record of its transaction in such form as the State Auditor General will direct in conformity with standard accounting practice. And B. Prepare at the end of each financial year statements of the account which shall be audited annually by the auditor appointed by the Accountant General of the state. Annual statement. The service shall A. In accordance with the state administrative guideline, prepare and submit through the commissioner to the executive council not later than 31st December in each year a report of its activities and operation with a certified copy of the audited accounts of the agency and the auditor's report on sale. B. Prepare and submit to the commissioner for the governor's approval it is annual estimate of revenue and expenditure for the period commencing from 1st day of January and ending of 31st December of the year, not later than 3 months to the expiration of the current year. 28. Create a new clause 23 with a side note to read State Fire Data Department. 1. There shall be a department in the service known as Fire Service Department, which shall operate an integrated and comprehensive state fire data center for the selection, analysis, publication, and dissemination of information related to the prevention, occurrence, control, and result of fire of all types. 2. The department shall be responsible for A, providing an accurate state-wide analysis of the fire problem. B, identifying major problem areas. C, assisting in settling priorities. D, determining possible solution to problems. And E, monitoring the progress of programs to reduce fire losses. 29. Create a new clause 24 with a side note to read ranking of the fire and rescue service. 1. There shall be a ranking system for officers in the fire and rescue service for the purpose of ensuring discipline and professionalism. 2. The ranking system for senior officers in the service shall include A. Chief Fire Officer, CFO. B. Deputy Chief Fire Officer, PCFO. C. Assistant Chief Fire Officer, ACFO. D. Station Fire Officer, SFO. E. Assistant Station Fire Officer, ASFO. F. Cadet Officer, CO, who shall constitute fresh graduate of the Fire Academy and Training School. 3. The ranking system for junior officers in the service shall include A. Station Officer Grade 1, SCN 01. B. Station Officer Grade 2, SCN 001. C. Assistant Station Officer, ASO. D. Subordinate Station Officer, SUB. O. E. Leading Fireman, LFM, or Leading Firewoman, LFW. F. Senior Fireman, SFM, or Senior Firewoman, SFW. G. Fireman, FM, or Firewoman, FW. And H. Recruit Fireman, RFM, or Recruit Firewoman. Create a new clause 27 with a side note to read Fire and Training Academy. There is established a fire and training school referred to in this law as the school academy. The academy shall advance the professional development of fire service personnel and other persons engaged in fire prevention and control activities. 2. The academy shall be headed by a superintendent of fire service. 31. In clause 28, now 57, delete the side note fire safety requirement and insert building liability insurance. 32. In clause 28, now 57, line 1, delete the phrase the owner of any building located within the state and insert the owner or occupier of any building existing or under construction located within the state shall be required to be insured against the liability for loss and damage to property or bodily injury or death caused by collapse, fire and related emergencies. Before the word shall. 33. Create a new clause 31 with a side note to read permission for certain buildings. Every building above 15 meters in height, whether existing or to be erected or likely to be used for a purpose such as medical or other treatment or care of persons suffering from physical or mental illness, disease, or infirmity, case of infant, convalescent or aged person, or for penal or correctional detention in which the liberty of inmate is restricted, shop, market, sleeping accommodation, hotel or rooming house, educational institution, assembly building where a group of people congregate or gather for amusement, recreation, social, religious, patriotic, civil, travel or for a similar purpose shall submit plan and obtain a permission from the fire and rescue service that safety from fire is reasonably attainable in practical and can be achieved. 34. In clause 29, now clause 58, create a new
clause 4 to read, the owner or occupier of any building existing or under construction located within the state is required to be insured against liability for loss or damage to property or bodily injury or death caused by collapse, fire, and related emergencies. 35. Create a new clause 32 with a side note to read, fire certificate required in connection with certain use of premises. 1. A fire certificate shall be required in relation to any premises which are or are intended to be put any class of use as it may be prescribed in the regulations to this law. 2. Where a fire certificate is required under this law, no person shall use the premises or perform any works with respect to the premises as the case may be, unless either A, there is a valid fire certificate authorizing such use, or B, an application for a fire certificate or its renewal has been made to the state fire controller under section 38. 3. The person responsible for the premises commit an offence if the premises are put to a class of use set out in the regulation at a time when no fire certificate covering use is enforced with respect to the premises. A person does not commit an offence under subsection 3 by reason only of the premises being put to designated use set out in regulations, provided an application for a fire certificate covering the premises and its use has been duly made before and the certificate has been granted or refused. 36. Create a new clause 33 designed to read, application for a fire certificate. 1. An application for a fire certificate with respect to any premise shall be made by the person responsible for the premises to the state fire controller in this prescribed form and shall A. Specify the particular use or uses of the premises which it is desired to have covered by the fire certificate. B. Specify the state of the work, if any, in respect of which an application for a fire certificate is made. C. Give such a fire safety information as may be prescribed about the premises and any prescribed matter connected with them. D. If the premises consist of part of a building, in so far as it is available to the applicant, give such information as may be prescribed about the rest of the building and any prescribed matter connected with it, and E. Be accompanied by the prescribed fee. 2. On receipt of an application for a fire certificate, the state fire controller may require the applicant within such time as may be specified. A. To furnish such plan relating to the premises as may be specified, and B. If the premises consist of part of a building, to furnish him in so far as it is possible for the applicant to do so, such plan of such other part of the building as may be specified. 3. Where the state fire controller, having considered an application for a fire certificate, is disposed to granting such certificate subject to any modification of the plan, calculations, specification, or particulars to which the application relates, may require the applicant to submit revised plans, specification, or other particulars providing for such modification. 37. Create a new clause 34 with a side note to read, grant of certificate. 1. Where an application for a fire certificate with respect to any premises of ours be made, and all such plan and documentation relating to it as may be required to be furnished in connection with it have been duly furnished, the state fire controller may, subject to the provisions of this law, A. Grant a fire certificate with or without conditions, or B. Refuse to grant the fire certificate. 2. In the exercise of discretion under this section, the state fire controller shall take into account any representations relating to the application which are received. 38. In clause 32(2) D, now 62D, line 2, inside the phrase and suitability clearance from Lagos State Safety Commission after the word regulation. 39. In clause 32(2), now clause 62, create a new section C to read C. Have attached to it copies of the site suitability approval of the Department of Petroleum Resources police report and certified true copy of the survey plan. 40. Create a new clause certified to side note to read certification plans. 1. Where an application for a fire certificate with respect to any premises has been made and all such plan and documentation relating to it as are required to be furnished in connection with it have been duly furnished, the state fire controller shall cause to be carried out an inspection of the plans and related documentation for the premises. 2. Where on an inspection of the plans with respect to any premises, the state fire controller is satisfied as regard any use of the premises specified in the application that A. The means of escape from the premises, B. The measure of securing that the means of escape can be safely and effectively used at all material times. C. The means for fighting fire in or on the premises by persons in or on the premises. D. The means for detecting fire and giving person in the premises warning. And E. Provisions of this law have been complied with as applicable, such as may be reasonably required in this circumstance in connection with the use of the premises. The state fire controller shall stamp the plan certifying that the fire safety design will respect to the premises, if constructed or maintained as the case may be, in accordance with the plans, document and information submitted, will comply with the minimum standards, codes, and requirements for fire safety and protection under this law and the regulations. 3. No person shall perform any works with respect to premises requiring a fire certificate unless the fire safety design of the plan or other such document relating to the proposed work have been certified by the state fire controller under subsection 2 of this section before such work are commenced. 41. In clause 33, now 61, the side note delete the word construction after final. 32. In clause 36(2), now 64(2), create a new clause F to read F. Have attached to it a copy of the site suitability approval of the Department of Petroleum Resources. 43. Create a new clause 36, decide not to read issue of fire certificate. 1. The state fire controller shall issue a fire certificate where on completion of any works on premises or on the implementation of a plan concluded pursuant to the section 21 and 22, the state fire controller is satisfied as regard any use of the premises that the means specified in section 22A and A to D and section 21 are such as may be reasonably required in the circumstance in connection with the use of the premises. 2. Where a fire certificate is issued subject to the conditions, the state fire controller shall, if requested to do so, inform the applicant of the reasons. 44. Create a new clause 37, decide not to read. Transfer of fire certificate. 1. A person who holds a fire certificate issued under this law in relation to the premises shall not assign or transfer the fire certificate without the prior written consent of the state fire controller. 2. An agreement relating to any such assignment or transfer, unless it is made subject to that consent, is void. 45. Create a new clause 38 with decided to read refusal of fire certificate. 1. Where the state fire controller is not satisfied that the means mentioned in section 38 to A to D and section 31 are such as may be reasonably required in the circumstance in connection with the use of the premises, the chief fire officer shall be noticed in written served on the applicant. A. Inform him of that fact and that the step which will have to be taken in order to certify the state fire controller as regard their use, and B. Notify the applicant that will not certify the plans or issue a fire certificate with respect to the premises unless those steps are taken within the time specified in the notice. 2. If at the end of the time specified under subsection 1 or such further time as may be allowed by the state fire controller or by determination of order made in proceeding arising out of an appeal under section 18, a fire certificate covering that use has not been issued, it shall be deemed to have been refused. 46. Create a new clause 39, decide not to read. Changes affecting adequacy of fire certificates. 1. Where the person responsible for a premise in respect of which a fire certificate has been issued under section 31. A. Propose to make a material extension of or material structural alteration to the premises. B. Propose to make a material alteration in the internal arrangement of the premises or in the furniture or equipment in which the premises are provided. C. Propose to keep explosive or highly flammable material of any kind permitted by law to be kept anywhere under, in or on the premises. Or D. Intend for any reason to leave the premises unoccupied for a period of more than 30 consecutive days. The person responsible for the change shall, before the carrying out of the proposed change and before the premises is vacated, give notice to the state fire controller in written of the proposed change or intention. 2. After receipt of such a notice from the person responsible for the changes on the premises or in any circumstance where the state fire controller becomes aware of any of the matters referred to in subsection 1, a state fire controller shall carry out an inspection or a survey of the premises. 3. If the state fire controller consider either portion to an inspection or a survey or otherwise that as regard any premises with respect to which a fire certificate in force, it will, in consequence of a change of conditions, be appropriate to amend the certificate for any of the following purposes. That is to say, A. To vary or revoke any condition or requirement which the fire certificate imposed by virtue of section 33(2). B. To add to the condition or requirement which the fire certificate is imposes, or C, to alter the effect of the fire certificate as to the person or person responsible for premises covered by the fire certificate. The state fire controller may make such amendment in the fire certificate as may deem fit for that purpose, or issue a new fire certificate embodying those amendments. 47. Create a new clause 40. Decide not to read record of fire certificate and certify plans. The state fire controller shall keep a record in written in such forms as consider appropriate of fire certificate issue or renew and plans certified by the service. 48. Create a new clause 41. Decide not to read submission of specifications. 1. Where required by the regulations, plans and before the commencement of construction of a building or alteration or repair to an existing building, an owner of the building shall submit the plans and specification to the fire and rescue service for review for the purpose set out in subsection 2. 2. Unless otherwise prescribed by the regulations, the purpose and scope of a review required portion to subsection 1 is to provide the state fire controller with an opportunity to advise A, an owner, B, a building inspector of an apparent contravention of this law, the regulations or the fire code where the state fire controller recognizes in the plans or specifications that there will be a contravention if the construction, alteration or repair were to proceed without a change in the plans or specifications. 49. Create a new clause 42. Decide not to read measure for prevention of fire. 1. An authorized officer shall, after the completion of the inspection of the building or premises under the provisions of this law, record the views on the deviation from or the contravention of the building by law with regard to the fire prevention and fire safety measure and inadequacy of such measures, providing in it with reference to the height of the building or the nature of the activity carried on such building or premises, and issue a notice to the owner or occupier of such building or premises directing the owner or occupier to undertake such measures as may be specified in the notice. 2. The authorized officer shall also give a report of any inspection made by it under the provision of this law to the state fire controller. 50. Create a new clause 43. Decide not to read inspection of buildings and premises. 1. Notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, an authorized officer may enter and inspect any building, including a building under construction, if such inspection appears necessary for ascertaining the adequacy of fire prevention and fire safety measure in such building. 2. The entry and inspection under subsection 1 of this section shall be done by the authorized fire officer in the manner laid down in this law and the regulation made under it. 3. Such authorized fire officer shall, after inspection of the building or premises under subsection 1 and after taking into consideration A, the provision of this building laws and regulation in accordance with which the plan of the said building or premises was sanctioned. B, the conditions imposed, if any, by the relevant authority at the time of the sanction of the plan of the said building or premises, and C, the minimum standard for fire prevention and fire safety measures specified for such building or premises as may be specified by regulations made under this law. Issue a notice to the owner or occupier of such building or premises stating the inadequacy in regards to the fire prevention and fire safety measure in need, and direct the owner or occupier to undertake measures for certifying the said inadequacy within such period as may consider just and reasonable. 51. Delete the side note of clause 42 now clause 17 and inside application and approval for registration by firefighting equipment dealers. 52. Create a new clause 44. The side note to read fire safety measures for building within the state. 1. A developer employed for a building construction site shall ensure that the building is designed and constructed with standard fire prevention, detection and alarm devices acceptable to the fire and rescue services. 2. The developer shall ensure satisfactory means of raising a fire alarm and a standard of escape for person in the event of fire in a building. 3. Subject to section 31. Above building plans and development shall comply with regulation 14 of Lagos State Building Control Agency (LSHA) regulation and all extant law on safety regulations. 53. Create a new clause for the 6. Decide not to read power to enter. With the consent of an owner of land or premises, a member of the fire department authorized by the state fire controller may enter upon the land or premises at a reasonable time for the purpose of determining whether there is a condition likely to A. Increase the risk of fire or B. Interfere with the escape of the occupant in the event of a fire or other emergencies. 54. Create a new clause 48 with a side note to read duty to take fire safety precautions. Unless this law or the regulation otherwise prescribe, every owner of land or premises or a part of it and every person shall take every precaution that is reasonable in the circumstances to achieve fire safety and to carry out the provisions of this law and the regulations made under it. 55. Create a new clause 52. Decide not to read fire investigations. 1. Where a fire has occurred upon land or premises, an authorized officer of the service may at any reasonable time enter upon, investigate and make an examination of the land or premises or any adjoining or nearby land or premises without a warrant for the purpose of ascertaining the cause, origin and circumstance of the fire or to provide for fire safety or fire prevention measure. 2. The authorized officer referred to in subsection 1 may A. Enter the land or premises within any equipment, machinery, apparatus, vehicle or material that the authorized official consider necessary for the purpose of the investigation. B. Take any who or thing that the authorized official consider necessary to assist with fulfilling the purpose of the investigation. 3. When the authorized official referred to in subsection 1 of this section consider it necessary for the purpose of the investigation, the authorized official may, by oral or written order, cordon off, close the land or premises, prohibit any person from entering or remaining until the purpose of the investigation is fulfilled and post security watch. 4. The authorized official referred to in subsection 1 may, to the extent that it's relevant to the purpose of the investigation, A. Examine document or things. B. Use data storage, information processing or retrieval devices or systems that are normally used on the land or premises being inspected to produce a document in readable form. C. Collect and remove data or samples. D. Make an inspection, carry out a study or conduct a test on the land or premises or anything on the land or premises. E. Take photographs or make videotapes or other images, electronics or otherwise. F. Remove anything from the land or premises for the purpose of conducting a test. G. Require the production of remove from the land or premises, retain, copy or examine anything. H. Make a such evacuation on the land or premises as the fire official consider necessary. I. Require that any machinery, equipment or device be operated, used or set in motion under specified conditions. J. Make any reasonable inquiry of a person, either orally or in written, or cause any of the above to be done. 5. Where the authorized official referred to in subsection 1 demands that a document or things to be produced for inspection, the person with custody of the document or thing shall produce it. And in the case of the document, shall, on request, provide any assistance that is reasonably necessary to interpret the document or to produce it in readable forms. 6. Anything removed from the land or premises portion to this section shall A. On request be made available to the person from whom it was removed. 1. Subject to any requirement that might be necessary to protect his integrity as evidence in an appeal or prosecution, and 2. At the time and place that are convenient for the person and for the fire official, and B. Unless it is impracticable to return it, be returned to the person within a reasonable time, unless it 1. Has been lawfully seized and retained for use as an evidence in a prosecution, or 2. Is required for use in an appeal portion to this law or the regulations. 7. While an investigation is being conducted portion to this section, no person shall A. fail to comply with a reasonable request of the authorized official, B. knowingly make a false or misleading statement to the officers, C. unless the fire official permits, remove, alter or interfere in any way with anything seized, detained or removed by the officer, or D. obstruct or interfere with the officers. 56. In clause 54, now clause 82, line 4, inside the phrase as stipulated in the Lagos State Emergency Command and Control Center Law 2014, after the word exceeding. 57. In clause 56.1, now clause 84.1, create a new subclause F to read F. Providing for building liabilities insurance against loss or damage to property or bodily injury or death caused by collapsed building, fire and related emergencies. 58. Create a new clause 61.3 to read 3. Have attached to it a copy of the provision approval of the Department of Petroleum Resources. 59. Create a new clause 88 in the side note to read offences and penalties. 1. Every person who A. tamper with a device intended to enable escape by a person from an area in the event of a fire. B. Attempt to enter or tamper with land or premises that are close portion to an order made by a fire official portion to this law, the regulations or the fire code without the approval of the fire official authorized to make the order. C. Remove a copy of an order or notice posted in accordance with this law, the regulations or the fire code without the approval of the fire official who made or required the posting or the state fire controller. D. Provides a fire official with information or matters relevant to an inspection or investigation that the person knows or ought reasonably to know to be false or misleading. E. Hinders or obstruct a fire official portion to this law, the regulation or the fire code. F. Refuses or neglect to attend, be sworn or give evidence before a fire official or inquiry when summoned to do so. G. Fail to comply with an order made portion to this law, the regulation or the fire code, or H. Otherwise contravene this law, the regulation or the fire code is guilty of an offence. 2. An individual convicted of an offence portion to subsection 1 is liable on a summary conviction to a fine not exceeding 100,000 naira or to a term of imprisonment no more than 6 months custodial sentence, or to both except where the individual knowingly commits the offence and the offence result in A. Loss of human life, injury or damage to the health of a person, or B. A catastrophe impact on the community, in which case the individual is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding 250,000 naira or custodial sentence not exceeding 2 years or both. 3. In addition to the fine imposed upon an individual portion to subsection 2, the court will impose a fine not exceeding 5,000 naira for each additional day during which the offence continues. 4. A company or a company organization convicted of an offence portion to subsection 1 is liable on summary conviction to a fine not less than 500,000 naira, except where the corporation within the knowledge of an officer, director, manager, or agent of corporation commit the offence and the offence result in A. Loss of human life, injury or damage to the health of a person, or B. A catastrophic impact on the community, in which case the corporation is liable or summary conviction to a fine not less than 250,000 naira. 5. In addition to the fine imposed upon a company organization portion to a subsection 4, the court may impose a fine not exceeding 50,000 naira for each additional day during which the offence continues. 6. An officer, director, manager, or agent of a company, organization who direct, authorize, assent to, acquire, or participate in the commission of an offence pursuant to this law commit an offence and is liable on a summary conviction to a fine not less than 150,000 naira or custodial sentence not exceeding 1 year or both, except where that person knowingly commit the offence and the offence result in A. Loss of human life, injury or damage to the health of a person, or B. a catastrophic impact on the community, in which case the offender is liable on summary conviction to 3 years custodial sentence. 7. A conviction for the offence of failing to comply with an order does not relieve the person convicted from complying with the order, and the judge may, in addition to the fine imposed, order the person to do any law or work to comply with the order with respect to which the person was convicted within the time specified in the order. 8. A person who failed to comply with an order made pursuant to subsection 7 within the time specified by the judge is guilty of an offence and is liable on summary conviction in the case of A. An individual to a fine not exceeding $5,000 for each day during which non-compliance continues, or B. A corporation to a fine not exceeding $10,000 for each day during which the non-compliance continues. 9. The state fire controller or any authorized officer may apply to a judge of the Lagos State High Court on an order enjoining a person from carrying out any activity that is contrary to this law, the regulations, the fire code, or another made portion to this law, the regulation, or the fire codes. Create a new clause 89 with a side note to read: offences by companies. 1. Where an offence under this law has been committed by a company, every person who, at the time the offence was committed, was in charge of and was responsible to the company for the conduct of the business of the company, as well as the company, shall be deemed to have committed the offence and shall be liable to be proceeded against and punished accordingly, provided that nothing contained in this subsection shall render such person liable to any punishment if proven that the offence was committed without the person's knowledge, or that such person had exercised all due diligence to prevent the commission of the offence. 2. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, where any offence under this law has been committed by a company and it is proof that the offence has been committed with the consent or convenience of, or is attributable to any neglect of the part of any director, manager, secretary, or other officer of the company, such director or manager, secretary, or other officer shall also be deemed to have committed that offence and shall be liable to be proceeded against and punished accordingly. Remember all clauses accompanying. 6.0. Recommendations. Based on the aforementioned observations, the committee wished to submit that the observation be adopted as recommendation of the committee. 7. Conclusion. The committee expresses its gratitude to Mr. Speaker and member for the opportunity given to carry out this assignment. We also appreciate the acting clerk of the House and the secretariat team for their support and ensuring the timely completion of this report. Thank you. Signed, Honorable Kazim Ari, Committee Chairman, Special Duty and Intergovernmental Mission.
Thank you. Wow. Honorable Tobu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to move that the report as presented by the Chairman, House Committee on Special Duty, be adopted for debate. Thank you.
Honorable Gani Okunlawo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to second the motion as moved.
All in favor say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. I want to thank the chairman of the committee, and I guess he must have spent close to 2 hours in delivering his report. My only observation is that I think that most of the observation, or 99% of the observation, are simply recommendations. But the truth of the matter is that nothing can detract or derogate from the quality of the job done. The industry they put into making the bill more elegant is commendable. Right now, it's open for your contributions. Honorable Yusuf Adebisi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the committee for the job well done, very voluminous and detailed. But Mr. Chairman, in as much as we have to appreciate the committee and the chairman, the 25, page 25, then page 25, page and 9. I don't know the wisdom by which the offenses committed have to be rated in dollar where we are in Nigeria. I don't see any law that is being made in America that will put the payment of fine in Naira. I think we are not a colonial era. I think let the chairman just tell me why, in his own wisdom of the committee, why they should put this one in dollar, because our Naira, I'm telling you, I'm still proud of it, and any Nigeria will be very proud of it. That's my observation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Sonny Ghanaian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues. I also want to join in applauding the committee for a job well done. It's actually a tailor-made, fit-for-purpose, life-saving, property-saving bill, rather. The committee has done a very good job. This bill has the power of fire prevention, fire detection, fire repression, and rescue. For that reason, it's a very good one. However, Mr. Speaker, in enriching the bill, I have the following to say, to submit. If we read the law, everywhere in the law, and if also go along with the report, there is nowhere in the bill, rather, that captures the board secretary. There is no board secretary, nowhere in the law, in the bill and in the report. So I want to suggest that under clause 5, we introduce clause 5, subclause 2E, the secretary of the board, who shall be a serving officer, not below grade level 15, or as the case may be. Again, in the law, look at clause 5.2b. It does not capture secretary for the board. So having said that, Mr. Speaker, I think everything about the bill appears to me very okay. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Tubman. Mr. Ain.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, I want to sincerely commend the chairman for a job well done. And one can see the efforts he has put into it. Well, the report is okay, but I just have one or two observations. Item 13, there's a clause 10, where they say the board may make a standing order to regulate its proceeding. So, in my own view, when I making a standing order to regulate its proceeding, it's just like a regulations. And I feel if such thing is going to happen, so as not to start using that standing order to replace this law. So, and in line with the regulation approval law, I feel this clause must be clearly included so that they will not make a standing order and use it stylishly to replace the provision of this law in the course of their operation. I equally notice, sir, that page 6, item 2, where they say the first fire controller, D of it, where they say to pay persons not being members of the fire and rescue service a money that could be determined by the fire controller subject to the approval. So I feel this is too free. At least it should be tied, maybe in tandem with the allowance to pay, because when you look at the allowance in page 7, they say the allowance shall be in tandem with the compass salary structure. So if this is left free, that means any amount could be allocated for anybody, no matter how minor. That is my opinion. No matter how minor the task is, they could allocate any fund for such thing. I feel it has to be at least regulated. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, the ranking system of a senior officer in the service, I feel what we are trying to do is this bill. They have limited the fire officer to level 14, which is chief fire officer. And in the bill, we are using a fire controller. So are we saying anybody who happens to find himself in the fire service agency of the government cannot move above level 14? Because, and if we did not cure this area, that means they can bring anybody outside to head that agency, and it will be the service to those who have labored over years in the course of promoting their profession. So I feel we should allow them to reach at least assistant director, which is level 16, as the case may be, rather than limiting them to level 14. So I feel this area, we have to increase the senior grade to minimum of assistant director, so that we don't just create problem for those working in that ministry or in that agency for now. And it has happened sometimes, sir, when they were trying to bring somebody from outside, telling them that there's nobody that's qualified. So we will limit their career if we put the maximum to the chief fire officer, especially in the law. So I want us to look into this area and do it. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, permission for certain building, I think it's going to be a jeopardy for members of the public, because if they have to get approval from physical planning and they have to come back to fire agency for another approval, so I feel there should be a nexus within the physical planning and the fire safety, so that at least the physical planning, who is the approving authority, can seek the buying-in of the fire prevention agency. At least they should make provisions within the system, instead of seeking approval from physical planning and going back to fire service to seek approval. They will approve the building. So I feel that part should be part of the physical approval LSHA arrangement, rather than now subjecting the people to be going to physical planning, LSHA, and coming back to fire service to come and, sorry for taking too much of your time, sir. So I want us to look at that nexus. Well, apart from that, well, some punishments here are too low to me. Any obstruction that affects the life of a person, I feel must, if you obstruct somebody from performing his duty and it affected the life of somebody, it must carry a more severe punishment. Because if not, you will discover that fire prevention officers, they will be obstructing them at will. And people will be dying knowing fully the maximum they will pay is 500,000. They said maximum. I feel it should be custodian punishment and payment. So, Mr. Speaker, that is my only two contribution for now, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You are referring to 15 as the deputy or whatever.
Level 14 is the chief in any cadre.
Yeah.
So when you move above level 14, level 15, deputy assistant director, deputy director, or director as the case may be.
But 15 assistant, 16 deputy.
Deputy
which one are you recommending?
I feel they should reach level 16 so that we don't kill their career. Thank you.
Honorable David Setonji.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, Mr. Speaker. I also want to commend the chairman for his effort and for a job well done. But I have my own observation too, which is a follow-up to, some of them are follow-up to what Honorable Thomas just said. On page 8, when we're talking of ranking of the fire and rescue service, that is paragraph 29, subsection 2. The ranking system for the senior officers in the service includes all the officers mentioned. But let us note that fire service is the responsibility of the mechanical engineers. It's part of their training in the university. In fact, all fire services all over the nation are headed by mechanical engineers. And mechanical engineers rise to the level 17 in civil service. So the fire officer that is in charge here, I don't understand where they are coming from. Fire experts are the mechanical engineers. In addition to that, officers that, in the body of the report, they mention the following officers: fire controller, superintendent of fire services, etc. But those ones were not mentioned in the nomenclature explained here. So we need to incorporate them because as if they are, not part of the offices to be held. And we must also take into consideration that there's an existing scheme of service in the service of Lagos State that has to do with the mechanical engineers and fire officers. Those ones were not mentioned here, so we need to see how we will be working at scrap purposes. Also, paragraph 30 that has to do with it says, for example, says there is established a fire and training school, referred to in this law at the school academy. We're having so many agencies of government, sometimes we cannot follow through with them. Recently, we just passed a training institute for all security agencies in Lagos State. And we just passed a law. This fire service is also an extension of training, of security services. So, the curricula of that training can include fire instead of creating another training institute. It has consequences on our budgeting system and our financing and all those things. So I don't think we need to create a new school for fire because the security agencies and all the security agencies have been put together in that law. So I think they should find a way to incorporate the fire training thing into that area. Then on page 25, which was has been mentioned really by my colleague, but I just want to emphasize the fact that we should not, we should be proud of our country, and we should not, under no circumstances, value our things more than other countries. Why must we be measuring dollars in our bill here? Irrespective whether they are multinationals that are involved or whoever they are, they must pay in our currency. That's why I think it's very important, so that we don't, belittle our own thing. I think that's my own little contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kasumu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While I commend the chairman of this committee for this report, I would like to draw attention to page 6 under clause 18. And in particular reference where it talks about the creation of state fire and rescue service divisions and units. I believe, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, that one of the major components or reasons why laws are being made is for the benefit and the interest of the public. And if you look at clause 17.2, where it says there shall be at least one fire service station in each of the 20 and 37 local governments and LCDs in the state known as fire service units. I don't see any reason why some other subsection cannot be added to this particular section that would further enumerate or further state that maybe perhaps some subunits should be particularly in close proximity to public establishments like public schools, hospitals, what have you, and other areas of public interest. And that is because these areas too are also areas that can be prone to a lot of fire outbreaks, and there's no place in there that actually considers this particular instance. Other than that, I think in a nutshell, this is a very wonderful report, and it should be given considerable attention. Thank you.
Thank you, the Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the bill is voluminous. The reports, the observation and recommendations are very many. But what I will not allow to escape my sight here is under penalties. I found it very curious that a man who willfully, by the provisions of by the provision in here, a man who is considered to knowingly and willfully commit an offense which results into loss of life or has catastrophic impact on a community is only recommended upon conviction to a fine not exceeding 250,000 naira or custodial sentence not exceeding 2 years or both. I feel this is like patting a man on the back, patting the offender on the back for doing a very bad job. Yes, I agree that for those offenses itemized, under subclause 1, now going to 2 to now say that the person will be fined 100,000 naira except it is established that that person knowingly committed the offense and it results into loss of human life. I am sure that the willfulness there the effect of the willfulness, loss of life, and having knowingly doing it, I'm sure criminal justice law will not accommodate this. So I will call that a further look is made in respect of that penalty. Penalty is meant to deter people. So when they place a note there, and you know that removing this notice can mislead person, that will cause a damage, and damage will result into loss of life, and you deliberately do that, then I'm sure 250 is too paltry a sum to attend to such. So I just feel that the chairman possibly will explain to us why they make that penalty so lenient like that.
The majority leader, I guess you are done?
Yes, sir.
Before yielding the floor to the chairman to respond to all issues raised by distinguished colleagues, I will just draw your attention to observation, the 501. Commissioner to mean commissioner, quote, for special duties and intergovernmental relation, or any member of the State Executive Council is incomplete. It's an incomplete statement. I guess you will, maybe it's a typo, they just left out some things. I guess they will do the needful when the final copy is coming out. I also want to draw your attention, Mr. Chairman, to under observation 14, I just think it's also typo. 14, a new clause 11 with a side note to read, meeting of the board, 11.1. The board shall meet at least four times in a year. I guess the board should just be expunged. Otherwise, Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity given to me again. And I want to thank all my colleagues too, and for those that raised observation too. Thank you, all of you. Honorable Bisi Yusuf, your concerns are about the dollar. I'm very sorry. I think it's a topographical error. It's a mistake. It's not dollar, we don't mean dollar, we want naira. Sorry for that. Honorable Okola, the issue raised by Honorable Okola is very germane issue. By the grace of God, before bringing it to, we shall look into that on the board secretary. And it's very, I think it's very, very necessary. We're going to look at that. Honorable Tobun, and on the standing order, you mean the board, he said there's no need of, getting standing. Can you please, I forgot that question. By law, we don't need by law to regulate our standing. Is that okay? Yeah, my explanation to that, sir, it has something to do with regulations, sir. Since it is an administrative, activities of the board, for their internal, activities. There's no need for. I think that will answer your question, sir. And also on the ranking of the the officers. I think whatever the house, you know, we have done our own bit. Whatever the recommendation of the house, we shall do the needful, sir. And also the permission. Honorable, I've also spoke about permission of certain building. Is that clear? To getting approval. We shall also work on that, sir. And I'm fortunate to be looking to too. Honorable Setoji, he also spoke about ranking issue. That's my previous in the house of that. And training schools. That one also has been noted, sir. And Honorable Kasumo, you advise to add maybe other sections to the present one, where if the whole house accepted that, we shall have this. And my majority leader, based on penalty that we said the 250 is on low side, where if you say it's 500,000, 1 million, whatever the house, go back. We shall go and work on that and do the needful. And thanks to our Speaker, the DS, the observation is noted, sir. Shall correct that. Observation 14. You also noted that, sir. Thank you, sir.
Motion. Honorable Bureau, is that an additional or?
No, sir. I want to move the motion as.
Okay, before you do that, I guess an important issue that Rieko is the penalty, but from what I've seen, I think the penalty does not mean that the offenders cannot be punished according to the criminal law. So, Mr. Abiru, Honorable Rotimi Prince Abiru, can you?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, sir. I wish to move that the recommendation of the committee as amended be adopted as a resolution of the House. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Mohammed Folajimi. Sorry, is there a problem?
Yes, there is, sir. Let's move the motion. I don't know if it's still okay for me, sir. So go ahead.
No, there's a motion on ground.
I rise to second the motion as moved.
All those in favor say yes. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are done with the purpose for which we dissolved to committee of the whole. I therefore, with your permission, want to move that the House reverts to plenary. I so move.
Honorable Ali Macaulay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved by the majority leader.
Those in favor say yes. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, at the committee of the whole, we through the presentation of the chairman Committee on Special Duties and Intergovernmental Relations in respect of a bill for a law to establish Lagos State
fire and rescue service and for other connected purposes. The chairman presented a very voluminous report, and the members painstakingly listened to the report, after which the chairman and the committee were commended for a job well done, but observed some issues in the report, in the recommendation contained in the report. The chairman promised to look into all the issues raised, and the recommendation of the committee was subsequently adopted as a resolution of the House, subject to the amendments proposed to the recommendations. It was on that note that the House revised to plenary. Mr. Speaker, by my understanding, that is all that transpired at the committee of the whole. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to affirm that that is a true recap of what transpired at the committee of the whole.
Honorable David Setonji.
I rise to second the affirmation.
All those in favor say yes. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, the item listed on the other paper for today has been exhaustively dealt with, and that should signal the end of today's session. I have your permission to move that the House adjourns till Monday, the 8th day of November at 12 noon. I so move.
Honorable Tobun Mustain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion as moved by the majority leader.
All those in favor say yes. All those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. The House stands adjourned till Monday, November 8th, 2021 at 12 noon, right? Arise.